Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Kevin R. Strauss. Kevin is an innovator, emotional health and wellness expert, and CEO of Uchi, a social app dedicated to strengthening relationships and improving behaviors. As a trained biomedical engineer with more than 75 patents, a book titled Innovate the 1%, and numerous peer-reviewed publications in spine, psychology, and human behavior, Kevin's career has fueled his passion for understanding people and why we behave the way we do. Kevin's mission is simple: to make life easier and happier for everyone by supporting Formula for Wellness: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. When he's not developing solutions for balanced well-being, Kevin enjoys expedition backpacking, ballroom dancing, and is a 24-year injury-free Ironman triathlete and coach. Welcome, Kevin. It is a pleasure here to have you here today. My words are coming out backwards today. Very interesting. So it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you guys and see where our conversation leads. I have a little bit of an idea of where we're going to go, but hey, you never know, right? So.
Exactly. Yeah. This show is all about family resources. What can we give to our families to help them have happy, healthy, successful children through education, through real life, through everything that we need to help our families grow and be strong. And so when I was talking with you, it's like, let's dive into that. Let's find out about how we can give them a little bit more help making those solid foundations and continuing these conversations. So with this in mind, give us a little bit more about your passion. Was there a specific incident or something in particular that sent you on this path that you were describing in your bio?
Actually, there was a specific incident or event. So, even when I was a teenager, I was always asking myself, like, why do I do this? And who do I want to be, things like that. And but then once I got out into the workplace and everything, and I was an engineer, I went to school for mechanical engineering and for biomedical engineering, and I love all that stuff. I love designing medical devices and all these patents and bringing products to the global market is super, super rewarding. Helping people live easier, happier lives, helping, really getting people back on their feet. And that's awesome, and I love that. But there was a time when I was working at an organization, and we were doing a lot of grant research that was funded by NIH. And basically, it's just we came up with ideas. It could be anything from infection control to fall detectors to working with Alzheimer's patients. But the incident that, to answer your question, is I was observing an argument between a father and his teenage daughter. And I'm watching this argument, and it occurred to me, they're not saying how they really feel. They're not saying what they really think. If people could just truly say how they feel and what they really truly think, and the other people can hear that, you would have no argument. Like, that's just what I thought anyway. So that was the real spark. And over the course of, observing that conversation, that argument, they're just butting heads, till the next morning, I'd come up with this whole idea to help parents with teenagers improve their communication, but not just their communication, but their connection. And it all started with, this was all back in 2001. Okay, so this is a long time ago. This is when internet was still getting going and email and all. And I was having these amazing conversations with friends only through email. Some of these people I'd only met in person once or not at all, actually. Like my boss at the time introduced me to his niece because we shared an author in common that we liked. So we started emailing, but I'd never met her in person. And we developed an incredibly close relationship just from writing email, which we know just from writing letters, how close people can become, right? And how connected they can feel. And the only difference between letters and email is the speed of delivery. That's really the only difference, right? So so I was like, well, parents and teens can do this, but they're not going to write each other email when they're like probably living in the same home, right? But I was like, what if we could just help them along with, because you open up a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, what are you going to write? What if we just ask a couple of simple questions to get the conversation started? And that's really how all of this got started, is just by asking a couple of simple questions that go below the surface, not deep. It's not about your deep, dark secrets. It's going just below the surface to really find out, how do you see the world? What is your perspective on the world? But what's so important is that it's not just the kids that are answering the questions. The parents have to answer also, because like we were just saying, the parents are people too, right? So if only the kids are answering questions as they are often interrogated when they come home from school, when the parents don't answer the same questions or share the same kind of information, that's when we don't connect. We disconnect. You cannot have a relationship if just one party is sharing. And that's one of the greatest pitfalls with parenting, is that the kids are always sharing, but the parents rarely ever do. I mean, my dad never came home from work and was like, oh, I gave this presentation and it didn't go over so well. My boss isn't happy and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it. I never heard anything about that.
Right.
So how do you connect with your dad's failure? Because now you think, oh, dad's always perfect. Everything goes well. Well, nobody's perfect, right? Especially parents. So let's help everyone along, ask a couple of simple questions that go just below the surface and get the conversations going. And it's amazing what people are willing to share in writing versus speaking in real time. It's hard to come up with it in real time. And we're so afraid of judgment and shame. That's what Uchi is all about, is just getting the conversation started with questions. And when people share, they connect. And when they connect, it nurtures them emotionally, and then they're not in pain, and then their behaviors are just so much better. So that's really a big scoop right there.
And that, yeah, everything you were just saying there about those connections on paper or through paper, right? Really just being able to share and connect is amazing and so important, because like you said, those teenage years, we start thinking, oh, our kids aren't going to understand, or we don't understand them, or whatever. And when those connections get made. So for example, like our son, he loves to share about like his video games and stuff. And it's not the top priority for us because we're not quite into sure exactly what but he starts explaining and just giving that time to listen and try to understand and ask some questions about, well, what does that really mean? Or how do you interact with this, weapon or whatever you're doing, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Those
right.
connections
And
are super
and
important.
even if you're not interested in that topic, which I totally understand that, I get it. We're not always going to be interested in what everybody else is interested in. But if we can acknowledge what that person is sharing, it doesn't matter if you care or don't care about the topic, the subject matter, but just by acknowledging, like, oh, so you had some really good video game experiences today or something, that's acknowledging. So then your son, in this case, feels heard. And that's actually only like a little bit of the equation. A huge part of the equation is validating the emotion behind whatever it is somebody is sharing. When you can validate the emotion, saying something like, it's probably so rewarding to reach that next level. And then your son comes back and says, exactly. Then you know you nailed it. And your son is going to feel so heard, so understood, so valued. And in our brain, how valuable we feel translates to how loved we feel. And love is a basic human need, just like air and water. And when you don't feel valued, like we try to feel valued by accomplishments and accolades, right? By going in the potty all by ourselves, right? Right? Yes. So that's conditional. We're already conditional rewarding our kids by saying, "Yay, you went in the potty. Here's a lollipop." "Oh, you went in your pants. You're a bad boy. You didn't go in the potty." That is conditional love, and that is already compromising that child's emotional health. We don't get it, but that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then when we do grades and when we do awards, all of this stuff is more conditional programming, that if you achieve something, you have value. And if you don't, if you're not the top of your class, if you don't get a good test score, if you don't get a good grade, you're less valuable. And that harms emotional health, that hurts, that causes pain, and a human will do anything to ease their pain. And in the absence of knowing how to love and connect, that's when they turn to behaviors.
And it's one of those things, actually, it brings me back to my teaching days whenever I would be like gone out of my classroom, right? And then I would come back and I would give them the sub report. Oh, the sub said this and the sub said that kind of thing. And then I would turn it back on them. I would say, I'm really proud of you for the job that you did. How do you feel? And I would always put it back on them and have them internalize. Do they feel like they did a good job? Did they feel like they lived up to expectations? Did they feel like they did the right thing?
Right, bringing it back to them and eliciting their opinion. But I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out on this. Here's the problem with all of that.
Yeah.
You said, I'm proud of you. That's a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, how do you feel about yourself? Now you're asking them to judge themselves. That's not validating. That's judging. Now, it might be positive judging, which feels good. Okay. Mm-hmm. But now we're still conditioning on judgment. We don't want to judge. We want to, I get it, I get it. And this is the problem. So many, and I've had this with validation workshops and stuff where people think they validate all the time, but as soon as they disagree with someone, they can't validate them. That's because they were never validating them anyway. They thought that agreeing was valid. Now, you weren't doing the agreeing thing, but people think or believe that when they agree, they're validating. No, they're not. They're just sharing their judgment. What we need to do is validate the feeling or the emotion behind what's happening. We don't agree or disagree. It's not a judgment. It's not a right or wrong. It's just highlighting the feeling and getting in touch so that you hear, you recognize that person's feeling. That's validating. And it's okay if you get it wrong too, because they'll probably correct you. And now you know exactly how they feel. What a wonderful thing. So I'm glad you shared that example, because it's a common way that we think we think we're validating, or we think we're supporting, but we're judging. We just happen to be judging positively. We just happen to be judging positively in that instance.
So I kind of have a question, because, we are about helping parents. So parents haven't been communicating with their teen. They've been at it for a while. They hear about Uchi. They download Uchi. How do they get their kids and stuff to start using it? Because they're already having problems communication, and suddenly mom and dad come up and say, "Hey, here, do this. We're going to fix all of our problems." Here's
the magic pill.
Right. Here's this magic program. How do we get started in this? How do we get teenagers who generally have kind of an issue communicating anyway to start using this?
Yeah. So that is really a fantastic question, because we're trying to get someone to do a behavior, and that's a hard thing to do. Even laws don't always dictate behavior. Even amendments and wars do not dictate behavior, right? So that's a fantastic question, Herb. What I might suggest is if there's already some strife, in the family, is saying something to your kid, like, hey, I know we've been having, challenges communicating and all. I heard about this really fun app that just makes it a little bit easier. You're not communicating directly with us. All you're doing is answering questions from the app, and we're answering questions, and only we can see each other's answers. And it's just a way for us to share our perspective and hear each other's perspective on whatever topic we choose on the Uchi app. That's it. You can write as much or as little as you want. It's totally private. Let's give it a try for a couple of weeks. Couple questions a day. That's all it is.
Yeah, because without the direct because the way that you were talking about is sharing the app with me is that, you're answering the questions. We're actually responding directly to somebody. It's not like our social
Correct.
media where we are actually, responding directly to somebody, or with an email where we're responding completely directly. So yeah, that level
Yes.
of distance, but yeah, at the same time,
Yes.
just sharing the same information, I think
Yes.
can bring that connection.
Yes. I call it indirect guided communication.
Okay.
Right? It's indirect because you're answering a question. You're not answering a person and their question. You're answering a question, and it's guided because you're answering a question, but your response is to the question, not directly to the person. Now, you can always start commenting and having written conversation back and forth on the app. So let's say you two were friends on Uchi, then those are the two main rules of Uchi. So on Uchi, it's super, super private. So only your Uchi friends can read your answers, and they can only read your answer if they've already answered that question. Okay? So nobody else that you're not friends with can, like, if we're not friends, I don't even know that you're on the app. I can't even search for you. Like, there's no search option on the app. Uchi is not social media at all. There's nothing public about Uchi. It's 100% private. So now if you two are friends and you answer a question, well, you can comment on Christina's answer and she can reply back, and you can have a whole conversation under Christina's answer to a question. But you can also have a completely different thread and answer conversation under Herb's answer to the same question. So it's not like a group text message or a group email or anything like that, where all these different conversations are getting intermixed. You can have a whole conversation under one person's answer and a whole separate conversation under another person's answer of the same question, but you have to be connected as friends. They need to be in your Uchi. So Uchi is the Japanese word for in-group or inner circle. So it's all about connecting with your people. And that's it. So, and all the questions, there's just, hundreds, thousands of questions available on Uchi. You just pick and choose like whatever you want to answer. Just know that you cannot read one of your friend's answers unless you first answer that question. Right? That's the reciprocity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to communicate with your children, do you like send them the questions that you want? It's like, hey, I answered this question. What is your answer? How do you, or because if there's thousands of questions, you just have to randomly hope that you pick the same question.
Another really great question that you have there, Herb. So on Uchi, you have a feed, okay, just like on Facebook or Instagram, there's a feed, okay? And in the feed, here's our algorithm. It's only answers and comments that are available to you, so only from your Uchi friends, or if you're an Uchi tribe, only the people that are available to you, and it's in chronological order. So if one of your kids answers a question that you have not answered, you'll see that it's available, but it's locked. And you just click on it, answer it, and then it will unlock. So you'll know what's available to you. It shows up in your feed. But that's all.
You'll be able to see the questions that your friends answered, but you won't be able to see what they actually wrote until you answer it.
Yep. You'll see the topic, you'll see the question, you'll see that it's locked. And then you click on it, then you can answer, and then you can read their answer.
So
there we go.
It says that you're interested in psychology and stuff as well. So do these questions have like help topics for individuals? Is that kind of where we're going? Are the questions designed to help people figure themselves out, learn about themselves, and then move through life easier? Or are they just random, do you like peanut butter or chocolate better?
It's much more of the latter. So Uchi is not therapy. We don't know what your problems are. We don't know what you're dealing with. There's infinite number of behaviors that people are struggling with, right? So we don't know what that is. And I don't want to know. And I don't have the capacity to know what all of the users, what people are struggling with. But what we have found is that once you have an opportunity to share that you like crunchy peanut butter and I like smooth peanut butter, or or if you share a memorable experience from grade school and I share a memorable experience from grade school, now we start getting to know each other as people. We start hearing each other's perspective. We become more familiar. We feel closer. We feel loved. And that's what drives behavior. So what's really interesting is that sometimes, in a lot of ways, the questions don't even matter. Just the act of knowing that I do care about you and I want to do this activity with you because I do love you, that right there can open a lot of doors. And we've seen that. I had a parent wrote in one time and they said, wow, things around the house have changed within the first week, and I'm like, you haven't even done anything yet, but I think just knowing that the parents are really interested in hearing the child's perspective, and the parents want to share their perspective, but not in a I know better than you, not in that kind of a way. It's, oh, here's something from my past, like I learned that a couple years ago now, I learned that my father was the valedictorian of his 6th grade class. And he wrote, like, I was a valedictorian, and I got to give a speech to the whole school. I never heard this story before. He's in his 80s, and I've never heard that story, So that's the kind of stuff that comes out in the written word that doesn't usually come out in normal, everyday conversation. Especially verbal conversation. Right. And that's the thing about Uchi. It's only the written word. There's no pictures, no video, no audio. There's no like button or heart. None of that. Right? It's only your words.
Nice.
Interesting. Cool. So, you were talking at the beginning also about, the emotional and the mental well-being of people. And we've talked about how, making these connections really help with that emotional and mental, but you said there's a distinct difference between what you call emotional health and mental health. Can you talk about that a little bit too? Because I think we want to dive a little bit deeper on these connections and things for parents, and maybe give them a different perspective on what those things are and how they can help their kids.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I love digging deep into this kind of stuff. So you mentioned in my bio, the formula for wellness. So I see our overall well-being like the 4 tires on a car. And those tires are physical health, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And my definitions for the emotional, mental, and spiritual are very different than mainstream society. I mean, this is stuff that's taken me like 20 years to really, dial in. But for me, so back to the tires. So just like the tires on a car, you cannot just inflate one tire and think that car is going to run well. But that's kind of what we do with physical health, right? Focus on your nutrition, focus on your fitness. You're going to be well. Well, that's actually not true, And if just one tire on your car is flat, it doesn't run well, and neither do you. And that's where we are with emotional health. And emotional health is different from emotional intelligence. So this is where things get really confusing for a lot of people. And I think this is why humanity is struggling so much, because our definitions are not accurate to what's really going on. So bear with me, this is going to be very different than what you've probably heard before. I define mental health as a person's ability to focus, concentrate, think clearly, perform cognitive tasks. It's your thinking and reasoning ability. It's your frontal lobe, basically. Okay? Doing your schoolwork, right? Doing your household budget, filing your taxes, if you do them yourself. Doing your work, right? That's your thinking ability. So this is why high functioning, depression or high functioning bipolar, it's because the high functioning is your thinking ability is still intact.
Yeah.
Okay. That bipolar or depression or whatever the mental illness is actually an emotional health problem. It's a behavior, because these diagnoses of mental illnesses or mental health problems are actually, all it is a title to a list of symptoms. Those symptoms are just behaviors. And those behaviors are how we try to ease our emotional pain. So emotional health, according to my definition, is our ability to give and receive love, connection, and belonging.
Now a few words about vibrant family education.
How many entrepreneurs and business owners start out on this journey to make a better life for their family, only to find that it took so much more time and effort than they were expecting that they had even less time for their family? I know I did.
At Vibrant Family Education, we want to help you reach your family goals while you're still building towards your business goals. We do this by bringing you the third leg of the stool to keep your family upright, family education development.
By bringing your children's education home, you will be able to model your work ethic and family values as you overcome obstacles and challenges to build your business. Instead of learning facts to pass tests, your children can be watching and seeing the dedication it takes to build your business and the legacy you want to create for their future. They will be able to witness the struggles and joys, the wins and the losses, and learn from you how to persevere and grow in life.
Instead of waiting until you get successful to spend more time with your family, start with the end goal in mind and bring your family home. Instead of trying to repair your family after you reach success, let us help you start achieving your family goals from the outset. Learn to be successful with your family now, and no matter what happens in the future, they will be better prepared for life, especially after watching how you cared for and built not only a business, but a healthy, happy, and successful family.
We offer a wide range of educational services, including how to easily get started with homeschooling. Come visit us at vibrantfamilyeducation.com and let us show you how. And now, back to our guest.
I like those two definitions, and they make a lot of sense to me.
They
Yeah.
make sense. Good. And just to round it out, emotional intelligence, and you can, look it up. Emotional intelligence really boils down to our ability to recognize and manage our emotions.
Mhm.
Okay. So managing an emotion, we can try to do that with our 5% conscious brain, but we know from the neuroscience in the last 5 or 10 years that 95% of our thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors come from our subconscious. So if we think our 5% brain is going to regularly override our 95% subconscious, how's that working for us? It's not.
Not very well.
Right?
So
It's not.
I add complexity to all sorts of things. You might have noticed from my questions. So I suffered a series of traumatic brain injuries. I have a big occlusion in my left prefrontal cortex. I've damaged my emotional processing centers on my parietal lobes. I've messed up the back of my head. So it's like I've got pictures of my brain and it's very pretty Swiss cheese in purple colors. So
Yeah.
So there's a lot of this stuff that it's like, okay, I can do that sometimes. Sometimes I'll get up to a behavior and then the behavior just doesn't happen. Or I'll get up to the emotion and then the emotion just isn't there. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the behaviors happen, sometimes they don't. I thought I was actually going insane, which is why I went and had my brain scanned in the first place, because stuff that I used to be able to do sometimes was there and sometimes is not. It's like, oh, hey, I can do this. And it's like, great. And then I'll sit down to do it again. And it's like, it just doesn't happen. It's, again, I sometimes still think I'm going crazy. It makes me feel broken, these words that I'm not supposed to use. So
that sounds really frustrating.
How does this app, how does what you're working with, how does that help someone like me that's just so weirdly inconsistent?
Well, first of all, like I was saying, it's like that sounds really frustrating. I mean, to
Yeah.
Right. And wanting to be able to do something that you can do and then not being able to do it. I mean, wow, that's hard. My little caveat is you might be the exception. You had a brain injury, like you had an actual traumatic event. However, I also still know that every human needs connection. It's a basic human need. So the brain can constantly remodel. It does our entire lives. That's the whole neuroplasticity. That's proven. So even if part of your brain has been damaged, the other part or some other part can pick up the slack and remodel to continue to connect. So Uchi is just a way to continue to reinforce your connections with the people you care about. And maybe part of your brain will start to remodel to account for that. I don't know. But I do know that we all need connection. I mean, that's how we got to where we are today, 200,000 years of being Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
That's how we got here. We need, it's so funny, we hear this all the time, especially now with school being like, we need an individual school teaching program for every child and everybody's different. And well, we're all individuals, right? We are all unique energies in the universe. We all vibrate at a slightly different frequency, okay? But even as Homo sapiens, we still all have the exact same basic human needs.
Right.
And they are undeniable. They are absolutely undeniable, right? How many people on the planet need to breathe on a regular basis?
Everyone.
Every single person. So we're all the same. We're all the same, right? Every single person has to breathe. Every single person needs some form of shelter or protection from the environment. A house, a cave, clothing, right? We all need shelter. The rule of thumb is you can go 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, like in a storm or something, okay? 24 hours without sleep. We all have to sleep. You try to go 24 hours without sleep, you're going to be in a world of hurt. I mean, you're going to be hallucinating, right? Now, you can train up for some of this, but that's the rule of thumb. We can go 3 days without water, but you try and go 24 hours without water, you're messed up.
You get
right?
thirsty. Yeah. You
Very.
definitely get thirsty.
And we can go 3 weeks without food. Again, we can train up and do different things, but that's rule of thumb, right? So those are the 5 physical, and there's actually 2 more, peeing and pooping. So try to go 24 hours without peeing or pooping. Like that's not good for our system.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the one emotional health need, and that's love. We are social creatures. We are literally designed to connect. There is no hormone, there's no gene for evilness or badness.
Right.
But there is a hormone specifically designed to help us love and connect and bond, and that's oxytocin. Because when we bond and when we work together as a family, as a community, it's much more easier to survive, right?
Yep.
We're much more effective when we hunt together than by ourselves, right? It's a lot easier to build a shelter. I'll help you build your shelter. You help me build my shelter. Maybe we'll build a community place for the tribe, but it's a lot easier to build a shelter with others than by yourself, right? So
exactly.
So it's through connection that we thrive, but we're not nurturing that on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I created Uchi as a way to connect and bond emotionally, and then it just goes from there. So we don't have these mental health problems that everybody thinks, because you can do your schoolwork, you can do your work, you can be a high functioning. I mean, Sigmund Freud was a cocaine addict, so he was a high functioning addict because he did all his psychology work, even though most of his stuff's been proven wrong, but he did all his psychology work. He's high functioning, but he's also a drug addict.
Right.
So you can be a high functioning because that's your mental ability, but your addiction is your way to try to ease your pain of not feeling that love and connection. So that's digging like deeper into the emotional health side, where I don't see humanity has a mental health problem. We have a severe emotional health epidemic because we don't know how to connect.
Yeah.
And so a couple of things you said in that, agreed with so much of it. We help people take their kids out of school and start homeschooling, because you can get that individualized education, which we think is really important for children. Because right now there's so much of the blanket education, and our children right now, less than half of Americans can read at or above a 6th grade level. And it's like, so our education system is messed up because it is this weird blanket thing out there that's trying to teach the same thing to everybody. Not everybody learns.
Well, I agree 100% with that, because our education system was based on a model that was, if you can read, write, and do arithmetic to the 8th grade level, this is back in like 1900, then you could get a factory job, which means you can make money, enough money to take care of yourself and your family. That's and the problem with education today is that we're still using that model.
For an industrialized society, and we don't have industry here.
So I agree. The education system is so flawed, like across the board. So
right. Yeah. And so like right now, our children, physically, we're the unhealthiest that we've been, and we're one of the most unhealthy countries. Our education is pitiful. You know, we have the most kids on antidepressants in the world that we've ever had right now. So
yes.
There's mental, that we're not.
But it's not mental. That's the thing. That's the thing, is the reason we're so physically unhealthy is we're still avoiding the emotional health component. Mm-hmm. So how many people eat their feelings, right? Oh, my girlfriend just dumped me. I'm going to go have some ice cream, or I'm going to go get drunk, right? I'm going to drink alcohol to numb. I'm going to eat food to soothe, right? Yep. Or I'm just going to get depressed and wallow in my own, misery because I don't feel loved or valued by that other human being. Right. So it's
all of this is why we help people take kids out of school. All of this is why we help.
Well, whether it's in or out of school, it actually doesn't matter if it's some public school or private school or homeschool. The real key is that kids need connection, and maybe in a homeschool environment they feel more heard and understood because one, it's probably their parent or maybe someone in the neighborhood because it's like a cluster. Because they feel really heard and understood. The reason smaller classrooms work like better in public school is because there's more of a 1-to-1, or instead of a 30-to-1 ratio, it might be a 10-to-1, and now the child feels heard and understood by that teacher. It's the connection. We know from the data, we know from decades of data, that the number one most important element of education, it's not the books, it's not the curriculum, it's not individualized programming.
It's the parental involvement.
It's not the parental involvement, although that's actually a big deal. It's the teacher-student relationship. The connection. Tell me, both of you, this is like how unimportant school is. How did you learn your first language? Did you learn in school?
No. Listening to your parents.
You didn't need school to learn a language. You learned a language before you were 5 years old.
Right.
You had role models, probably your parents, caregiver, but let's just say parents for sake of argument. So you learned an entire language, maybe not all the nuances, but you learned enough to be, effective.
Right.
Before you were 5, before any formal schooling, whether homeschool or public school or private or whatever, you learned it from your parents. Okay. Another example of this is I went to school for engineering, right? I have a master's in biomedical engineering. I don't attribute like any of that to me being such a good problem solver. The reason I believe, and I wrote about it in my book a little bit, the reason I think I'm such a good problem solver is because I had an 18-year apprenticeship with my father. Mm-hmm. I helped my father fix the washing machine, fix the dishwasher, build an addition onto the house, restore a Mustang convertible, do all the landscaping in the yard, remodel rooms. I was his helper. I got so much education, and my dad always wanted to build something new, try something new. This is back in the 70s. I think I'm older than you guys. This is back in the 70s. We had to like fix the television set, it was like vacuum tubes and everything. I remember going to the hardware store trying to figure out which vacuum tube wasn't working and everything. We fixed things back in the day. And I learned how to problem solve from my father. I didn't learn it in engineering school. I learned theory in engineering school, but I didn't learn how to actually innovate. And that's why I have more than 75 patents, because I know how to identify the root problem and then come up with a creative solution that's simple. I didn't learn that in school. I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't.
No. And that's exactly what we talked about when we were talking about our holistic homeschooling. So it's not just the academics. We're talking about the whole child, the whole family, the whole human being, those skills that you were just talking about, working together as a family, feeling the connections and learning through life as well as getting the academics.
You're really in it together. You know, you're like the whole, it's not even just, like you said, it's not just about the formal academic education. It's about just learning about life. And oh, by the way, reading might help, math might help, but also learning how to reach out to someone and ask them a question, or look, I'm really interested in video games. How can I get better at this video game? Work with your kid on that. And it's a project that they're really interested in, but they're getting your support. And isn't that what we all just want?
Yeah, that's why we call it vibrant family education. Because we're using the education of the children as a way to bring the family together more as a unit, to help the family grow, communicate, become more societally oriented and family oriented.
Because we're all in this together.
Because that connection is so important. And the way America is falling apart right now is all
the world.
Division.
America and the world.
In the world. Western culture is they're taking the children away from the families. They're taking the brothers away from the sisters. They're putting in all of these strifes, and so the destruction of the family is how they're taking apart Western civilization. And you know, we kind of like our civilization, so we're really trying to rebuild the families.
Those families stick together.
It'd be nice to continue to exist. I'm down for existing.
Education. We're using the education of the children to start putting the families back together. So we use
like a vehicle
focus. But it's really about the whole family coming back together and communicating.
And that's what we need. I mean, we need connection, whether it's your biological blood family or wherever you find that community. That's why I said love, connection, and belonging. If we don't feel a sense of belonging, I mean, how many people don't even feel, or how many people feel alone and isolated in their family, living under the same roof? How many people feel alone and isolated in a two-partner relationship? You know, we have like 50% divorce rate, you know, that's global. So
that's horrible.
So we don't know how to connect because it's not something we have intentionally nurtured, because honestly, our priority as a species up until only like 75 years ago has been survival. We just need to get food on the table and a roof over our head, you know?
So I do like to give a little bit of hope here. So like the marriage statistics, first-time marriages, the divorce rate is only like 30%.
Is that right?
But people who've been married like 3, 4, 5, 6 times, they bring the average down.
It does.
50%. But first-time marriages of traditional kind of value people, it's actually closer to 70% of first-time marriages stay together. But the 30% that break up multiple times. So
well, once you start, it's easier the next time to end.
Right. Oh, I can't wait to get to my 4th divorce.
You remind me a lot of my 3rd wife, you know.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So it is better than 50%, but the 30% that have a problem do it multiple times. So it is a little bit better than that. And as a family oriented person, it's like, no, there are still many, many benefits to a marriage. We've been together for 35 years and it's like,
wonderful. Congratulations. That's wonderful. I mean, to have a partner in life, again, it's a basic need, you know, we need it. And if we're not getting it if we don't have a partner, if we don't have close friends, I mean, I've got friends I've been friends with for 50 years, you know, literally like best friends for 50 years. Like how many people, you know, can say that? I mean, I'm super lucky and grateful, you know. My parents are still married, alive and married, and they've been, you know, 65, I don't even know, some 66 years they've been, I don't know, something like that.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, you know, so it's wonderful. It's keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. Exactly. Kevin, this has been a great conversation. I really feel that, parents are really going to get some good benefit out of this conversation. Like we were talking about, the difference between the mental, the emotional, and all the different connections and things. So this has been wonderful. Can you please let the families know if they're like super excited about what we've been talking about? They're like, oh, this thing called Uchi that Kevin has right there. But we really want to give it a try. Give them the information of how to get a hold of you and what's available.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find and download the Uchi app. It's spelled UCHI. Free to download and free to make your account on the App Store and Google Play. So it works on any tablet or Chromebook as well. The website is uchiconnection.com. And that's like all the social media. Not that we're doing much social media. And then for me personally, my website is kevinrstrauss.com. And that's same for my LinkedIn and most all of my social media. Again, social media is like that one way out, but Uchi is a two-way private with just your people. And again, Uchi's free, but if you want to use Uchi, like Herb, you were talking about some questions that are specific to your challenges in your home or subject matter that you're talking about or whatever it is, there is a feature on Uchi where you as a tribe leader, you pay a small fee and you can come up with the questions and invite a small group of people. Maybe it's just your family, and you guys answer the questions that you came up with. This has been super successful with like church youth groups, classrooms where teachers come up with the questions, bosses for their team, for team building. And it's really fun when you're not talking about subject at hand, problems or subject matter, when you're just getting to know each other as people. And that's what starts the foundation of connection, which nurtures the emotional health, which drives better behaviors.
Wonderful. As we begin to wrap up, I really want to encourage our audience. You've been here, you've been listening. Remember that we don't want to just take all this great information and just file it away in our brain or put it in our pocket. We want to actually take something and use it. So stop and think right now. What is one thing that you heard today that you can do to help you and your family bridge that connection and do something a little bit more to help all of us in society by being a strong, healthy, and happy family? Stop and think about that right now, just for a second. And then, Kevin, we're going to end with final words from you. Is there something that we didn't quite reach today that you wanted to talk about, or one more piece of advice for those families?
Man, I really wish we had got here today. What's that?
What you just said, take a moment and really be intentional about what do you want for your family. And I don't really have anything else to add, and let's just give Uchi a try for 2 weeks. A question a day keeps the therapist away.
I like that. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for being here today, Kevin. It has been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for putting yourself out there. So many people have these kind of problems, but then they just want to talk about it. They don't actually try and find solutions. And not only are you finding solutions, but you're out there sharing it with the world, putting it out there, opening yourself up to all sorts of issues by making it public. So many people just it's so much easier just to disappear, but you're out there. And so you went out there, you conquered your dragon, you came back and you're sharing your wisdom with the world. So you are on a hero's journey. You are a hero. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your work. And thank you for trying to make life better for people.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. All right, audience, you know what to do. It's time to share and like and subscribe and all of those things to make sure that other families get this wonderful information. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye for now. Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts